Have you spent years loving, understanding, and showing up for others while quietly abandoning yourself? Welcome to Love Me Unconditionally, your self-love masterclass. I'm Michelle S. Fondon, author of Love Me Unconditionally, a spiritual guide to self-love and inner peace, and its companion workbook. This show is here to help you build the most important relationship of your life, the relationship you have with yourself. In Season 1, we're exploring the 14 traits of unconditional self-love so you can stop chasing love outside of yourself and begin coming home to your own worth, peace, and inner wholeness. Let's begin. Welcome back to Love Me Unconditionally, your self-love masterclass. This is episode 3, and we are going to talk about the third trait of unconditional self-love, which is I feel deeply fulfilled in my own company. Let's explore exactly what this means and the drawback if you don't do this. But first, we are going to start with our self-love check-in. To check in with yourself, I always ask you to ask yourself 3 questions. And the first question is, how am I feeling right now? Know that anything that you are feeling right now is perfectly valid for where you are today. Acknowledging your feelings does not make them grow, even if they're negative. It's just a body, mind, spirit check-in. How are you feeling right now? The second question for the self-love check-in is, what do you need? Is there anything that you need at this particular moment? You can either pause the video and take care of that right now, or you can write it down and address it after you watch this video. And the third is, what do you desire? What is your deepest driving desire today? And I would say, make sure that you put yourself at the top of your to-do list. Your desires count. Your desires matter. And do this self-love check-in every single day so that you can get more attuned to yourself living in unconditional self-love. Let's continue with the third trait of unconditional self-love. I feel deeply fulfilled in my own company. I feel that the key words here are deeply fulfilled, profoundly fulfilled. Now, this is so important, and this is something that I did not have until, really recently. I would say in the last few years. It's something I didn't quite understand, and it's something that I really did not live from a visceral level, from a connected level. I'll tell you a little bit about me and how I felt about this. The point at which you feel deeply fulfilled in your own company, you start to attract people who want your best and highest good. What is the drawback? The drawback is having a void. When you are not deeply fulfilled in your own company, you start to attract people who are not serving your best and highest good. Why? Because you're trying to fill a void. You're trying to fill a hole. And when you do that, people will come in who want to take advantage of your energy, who want to take advantage of your kindness, of your service to others, of your need to be loved. Sometimes we refer to these people as energy vampires, and sometimes they're that extreme. At other times, they're people with a wounded ego, and they're looking to you to also fill a void, fill a hole in them. And so you get two people coming together, trying to fill the void in each other. And usually it results in mutual destruction. You know those relationships that I'm talking about. Maybe you have a few of them in your life. I believe that this really stems from childhood. Most notably, this tends to stem from parents that were not deeply fulfilled in their own company. And so they looked to their children as the source of happiness, the source of light, because children are light. And when a parent figure looks to their child as the only source of light, then the mantra for that parent becomes, how can you fulfill my needs? And then we go out into the world once we're grown up and we select others that are in that same mindset of how can you fulfill my needs? Here's a little bit of my story of how I felt. And I can only give you my feelings, how I felt about this, about feeling deeply fulfilled in my own company. I always thought that I loved myself. I thought that I enjoyed my own company. I'm more of an introvert than an extrovert. And I enjoy my alone time. But I also enjoy immensely being in the company of others. That said, since a very, very young age, I always conceived that if I wasn't partnered up in a romantic relationship, probably from like age 13, that I was a loser, that I didn't have worth, that I didn't have value. And so from about age 13 forward, I made sure I was always in a romantic relationship. Always. It almost didn't matter who the person was as long as I was partnered up. Because I really felt that if I was alone, that I had no value. And so it created a lot of anxiety in me to have that gap between relationships if there was ever a gap. And so I was constantly putting myself out there, staying in a romantic partnership, perhaps longer than I should have stayed when I was with the wrong person for me. But I did it because I was not deeply fulfilled in my own company. I felt like I was a loser in my own company, that if I wasn't partnered up, if I wasn't in a romantic partnership, that I was certainly a loser. Now, a lot of this does stem from societal conditioning when we are very young. Now, it could be parental upbringing, but it could be school. How many of you were in elementary school, and if you didn't get picked to play with on the playground, other kids called you a loser? If you were sitting alone on the playground or in gym class, people called you a loser. And then it became anchored in our brains that if we're alone, if we're just hanging out by ourselves, that we must be an outcast of society, an outcast of our peer group, an outcast in some way, shape, or form. And so we grow up and learn these behaviors and these thought patterns that are not true in any way. So we learn this and we have this deeply anchored within us, deeply anchored. And I know that was the case for me. I was deeply anchored in the thought that if I am out of a romantic partnership, I have no value whatsoever. I only have value if I'm paired up. Now, you might be sitting there laughing, thinking that's completely stupid and ridiculous, or you might be nodding your head in agreement and saying, oh yeah, you know what, I've been there. I've actually been there. But I'm confessing to you that that's where I was until very recently. And it wasn't until about 2019, and I do tell this story in my book, Love Me Unconditionally, that it was in 2019 when I had the coaching session, the one-time coaching session, that I began to realize that I needed to fulfill my own needs, my own desires, that I needed to value myself, and that spending time with myself, by myself, and being deeply fulfilled was my number one task against getting into another toxic relationship. I think I need to repeat that because I don't quite know if you understand this fully, if you have been in relationships that are toxic at all, right? Any relationship that's toxic. It doesn't have to be a romantic one. I had to learn to be deeply fulfilled in my own company first. I had to learn that. I had to learn how to be completely and utterly joyful in my relationship with myself, but also like being out in public by myself. I had to feel deeply fulfilled in order to no longer attract toxic relationships. And that was a hard pill to swallow because of my mindset of being a loser if I was alone. And to that end, I almost never found myself in a coffee place, in a restaurant, eating by myself. How dare I do that? I'm such a loser to sit there. Now, I would justify it if it was for work, for example, if I was out eating lunch, but I had to get back to work. And so it was kind of the only option at the time. But mindfully and deliberately going to a place by myself to sit alone at a table and eat food, I was really uncomfortable with that. So I had to learn to feel deeply fulfilled in my own company in doing that. Now, the first big step for me was in June of 2019 when I took a solo trip to an all-inclusive resort in Mexico because I really love Mexico, but I took a solo trip mindfully, intentionally to Mexico, to an all-inclusive resort. And it was my training ground. It was my training ground to learn to be deeply fulfilled in my own company. And that was my intention going into it. And it was extremely scary at first. First of all, I was traveling to a foreign country by myself. Now, that was not the first time. Many of you know that I went to study in France for college when I was 19 by myself. I was with a group eventually, but it was me leaving the US for the first time when I was 19 by myself. So it wasn't the first time, but it was the first time in a very long time. And so when I got there, I started to feel this sense that people were looking at me, that people were staring. And then the comments came out of my expectations. A lot of people came to me, workers at the resort, other people, other guests, and saying, "Are you here by yourself? Are you on this luxurious vacation alone by yourself?" With this question mark in their minds of like, why? Why would you do that? And I began to laugh it off, but genuinely laugh it off. I began to like giggle and play around with it and say yes. And really get into this mindset of, oh my God, this is actually okay. I'm doing something for me and I'm learning how to be deeply fulfilled in my own company. And it was actually during that vacation that I wrote Twin Flame Romance, The Journey to Unconditional Love. Interestingly enough, I didn't finish it during that vacation, but I certainly made great headway in writing that book on that vacation. So I was learning self-love firsthand and learning to be deeply fulfilled, not disturbed, not feeling like a loser, not feeling like people were talking about me and judging me, because they probably were. But I had to feel deeply fulfilled in my own company. And now I take vacations by myself all the time. I go to restaurants by myself all the time. And I don't feel like, oh, people are talking about me and I'm a loser and people are seeing me as being this person who should be paired up with someone. But it was a long road to get there. But once I got there, it felt extremely liberating. And as I mentioned, it felt kind of funny too, because I was like, oh, people really don't do this. People don't really feel comfortable alone. And it was an aha moment that I had unlocked a key to the answer of unconditional self-love. One of the keys, but I had unlocked it. And it was this secret that a lot of people just don't know. And as I mentioned, it was completely liberating. Now, the cost of not feeling deeply fulfilled in your own company is exactly what I mentioned at the beginning of this episode. And that is, if you feel that the deep fulfillment comes first and foremost when you are in a relationship with another person or persons, you will continually attract people who take advantage of you, who walk all over you, who have high demands of you, who want you to change to fulfill their needs, who want you to meet them where they are at. You will find people who are narcissistic, who are addicted. You will find people who are mentally ill but haven't had the treatment necessary to feel right in themselves. You will attract all sorts of people who are ready and available to come into that void that you yourself have created, but they will not meet you at the place that you desire them to meet you at. It's only by obeying this trait, that you will start to repel those who want to take advantage of you, and you will start to attract those who only want the best for you. And that is so essential on the road to unconditional self-love. Before we continue on our journey in the next episode, reflect on this. Reflect on, do I feel deeply fulfilled in my own company? And if not, how can I rectify that? What can I do about that? Now, I'm going to give you a little tip here. To test it out, go somewhere by yourself and don't look at any devices, okay? It does not count if you're on your phone, iPad, computer, if you're watching a TikTok video, Instagram. That doesn't count. What I'm talking about is you and you, mano a mano. It's just you and you, somewhere where other people would equate to being a place where you would go with someone else. How does that feel inside? Do you feel deeply fulfilled, or do you feel anxious? Do you feel worried? Do you feel like others might be judging you? That is a great way to tell how deeply fulfilled you feel in your own company. Thank you so much for joining me today. I love you so much, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Love Me Unconditionally, your self-love masterclass. Before you go, take a moment to reflect. How does this trait show up in my life right now? Where am I already practicing it? And where am I being invited to love myself more deeply? If this teaching resonated with you, you can explore the full self-love journey in my book,
Love Me Unconditionally, a spiritual guide to self-love and inner peace, and the companion workbook. You can find them at lovemeunconditionally.com. And if you'd like to continue this 14-week journey with me, subscribe, click the bell, and join me for the next trait of unconditional self-love. Much love to you, and I'll see you in the next video.